So let's now take a look at the interface for Pigments. Up top here, we have the preset browser. If you've used any synths from Arturia, you will be familiar with their preset browser. Very efficient, very easy to find what you're looking for. If you know the name of the preset, you can just type it in here. But if you're looking for a specific category like leads, something ambient, for a soundtrack, you can narrow it down to a single preset like this. Double-clicking would load in the preset. Let's have a quick listen to this one. Now you can also click here and access presets from the different categories. It does take a second to load in a specific preset. And of course, you can hit the next preset button to quickly access the next preset in the list. Alright, now let's talk about the actual interface for the synth. There is a Synth tab here. We have all the synthesis related parameters. Then there's the Effects tab for all the effects processing. And then there's also the Sequencer tab where you can access the arpeggiator and the sequencer settings. Let's head back to the Synth tab and look at all the components in here. You have two engines. Each engine can be either an analog engine, a virtual analog that is, and a wavetable engine. You can copy settings from one engine to another. A lot of controls over here, and we'll dive into this eventually. Next, there's a filter section here. You get two separate filters and a variety of different filter types. And the two filters can be run in parallel or series. Then in the middle over here, we have all the modulation routing options. A very unique and different approach to modulation routing on a software synth. So if I just hover my cursor on top of this LFO3, I can quickly see where this is assigned. So wherever I see a yellow curve, I know that that LFO has been assigned. And of course I can click and then look at more detailed parameters and add on additional mappings as well. All right, let's close out of here. At the bottom here, you get all the modulation sources from your standard keyboard to the 3 different envelopes, 3 different LFOs, 3 different function generators. These are pretty flexible. We can do a lot of fun stuff with this. And then even random generators. Now typically on a synth, you might see one random generator like a sample and hold. But here in Pigments, we get this Turing generator and even this binary random generator. And if that's not enough, there's this combinate section where you can combine different modulators using some basic math options to create completely new permutations and combinations. Hence the term combinate. So you get 3 of these. And finally, 4 different macros. I like how everything is so visual on the synth. Just tweaking that macro dial, you can see how it's changing up the parameter there. Just like on the LFO here. Very easy to understand what's happening. Alright, let's head over to the Effects tab. So you get 2 effects buses, and you also get an effects send bus. Now these 2 buses can each house 3 different effects. Clicking over here lets you access the different effects. They are identical in all the 3. You can change the signal flow. So if I want the compressor here to be before the stereo pan, I can just drag it over like that. So that's effects bus A. So let's say our synth signal is going into effects bus A first. Then it goes to effects bus B, where I can additionally add more effects processing. I have the option for the signal to run in series like this. So signal goes to effects bus A first and then bus B. Or they can run in parallel like this. Or reverse series. So the signal goes to effects bus B first and then effects A. Now if all these effects routing and effects options are not overwhelming enough, there's also an effects send bus. So you can see here there's a send and a return. So you can take that original synth signal and send some of it to this effects send bus, ideal for reverb, but you can have 3 separate processors, and you can bring that in with this return dial. You may be used to using processing from your DAW, but with the detail with effects processing in Pigments, I don't think you ever have to leave Pigments to design an entire sound from scratch all the way up to the effects processing. And then finally, there's the Sequencer tab. Here we have access to the arpeggiator as well as the sequencer. A lot of controls here, as you can see with the sequencer. You can choose individual notes for the steps, the octave controls, the velocity, trigger probability, a very detailed step sequencer. Now, because this is such an in-depth, detailed synth, it might be helpful to keep an eye on that left bottom corner there, which tells you what each parameter is. So like, for example, here, it's letting us know that that's filter 1 cutoff. If I go over here, it tells us wavetable 2 mod fine, sets the fine tune of the modulator. And then in the bottom right here, we can set the MIDI channel, hit the panic button if some notes get stuck, and also keep an eye on the CPU usage. Alright, so that's a quick look at Pigments. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff happening here, but we're going to break it all down into individual components. We'll start off by first looking at the engine, specifically the analog engine.